And we're back again. Good evening, Malta and Gozo.
The world's tiniest violin provides the soundtrack to Joseph Muscat's legal troubles.
And Malta's slowest cash rebate causes headaches for the producers of the country's Oscars entry.
Welcome back to NEWZWEEK, our attempt to somehow cover this week's major scandals as a two-person newsroom in a country with a justice system that is coming apart at the seams.
The defense in the hospitals case is now attacking a highly recognized anti-corruption expert, Julian Deliga with News Milwaukee.
Today, dear followers, we ask you to express solidarity in support of disgraced former Prime Minister Joseph Muscat and his buddies who are accused of bleeding 3 hospitals dry. This morning, we heard valiant defense lawyers yet again doing their utmost to absolutely crucify one of the key court experts who were involved in the inquiry, Miroslava Milanovic, who testified at length on Wednesday. They pleaded with the court about their client's legal troubles after they were informed that Milanovic would not be testifying today. Poor old disgraced former Health Minister Chris Fearn and the other co-accused lost senior government positions because of this case, they railed. They deserve timely justice, they cried. Now, isn't that something? For once, we find ourselves in agreement. Okay, let's cut the crap. Let's start with the basics. Why was Milanovic not present today? Well, the Office of the Attorney General informed the court that since the expert witness now faces a criminal complaint against her, thanks to Joseph Muscat and his buddies, she was not in a position to testify today. Yesterday evening, Muscat went to court to ask the police commissioner to investigate Milanovic on the basis of the claim that she is not a qualified forensic accountant. Well, if the police commissioner's responsiveness to this case so far is anything to go by, good luck to Joseph Muscat and his buddies with getting him to do anything. But we digress. Prior Muscat's criminal complaint, Milanovic had committed herself to providing the court with authenticated copies of every relevant qualification she has. After the criminal complaint filed by Muscat, a full-swing pincer attack from both sides has forced her into an impossible position. Murmurs and clamour on all sides of the defense benches followed after the prosecution announced it would not be summoning Milanovic today. Allusions about having something to hide followed swiftly afterwards. Whispers among the accused and their loved ones about how farcical all of this is followed as well. Here's a thought for all of you. Perhaps court experts would be more readily available to testify if they didn't come to this country to be yelled at for 4 hours straight. More specifically, might I also suggest that if the defense wishes to expedite justice, perhaps it would be best to just get straight to the meat of the accusations against their clients, instead of nitpicking every single court expert's qualifications. You know, those very same accusations that led us all here to this godforsaken courtroom and those 3 hospitals which still look like a horror film. Oh, and in case you were still wondering, we did search for adverse coverage related to Milanovic. All we found instead was that she was decorated by the OSCE delegation to Serbia as 2015 Person of the Year for her outstanding anti-corruption work. We also found that she even served on Serbia's National Anti-Corruption Council. She resigned shortly after she was subjected to an organized intimidation campaign. Oh, and here's the real kicker. Joseph Muscat clearly did not have any issue with Milanovic's work on the E-Grant inquiry when she was roped in as one of the experts in charge of carrying out the inquiring magistrate's orders. One does wonder, is Muscat's selective tantrum due to the fact that the terms of reference of the hospital's inquiry were not his to dictate, as was the case with the E-Grant inquiry? With a track record like that, I'm sure Milanovic must have felt she was treading in familiar ground when she was testifying on that witness stand. Meanwhile, Matthew Caruana Galizia said that the trial of Jürgen Fenech will not happen before February 2025. Fenech has been denied bail since his arrest in November 2019, which occurred midway through an escape attempt on his yacht. Caruana Galizia said that the official excuses for the agonizing slowness of the criminal case were mostly coming from court-appointed expert Martin Bayada. Bayada reportedly cited the limited daily capacity of his printer and going abroad on a holiday as two of the reasons for these delays. We will be keeping an eye on this whole mess as the situation develops.
In this day and age of disinformation and fake news, it's even more important that we are able to find the truth. And the only way that we can do that is through free, uninhibited and uncompromising and uncompromised journalism, which is why sites like the Critical Angle Project and NewsMT are so important to us. As otherwise, what we are fed is information with a bias, which maybe doesn't always lead us to the truth. And if we want to be able to take fair decisions in a democracy, then we need to know the truth and to be able to filter through all the potentially fake news that is being thrown at us all the time. It's the only way that we are going to have a free society. Now, for these sites to function, they need money. So please give generously. Ultimately, it benefits us all.
It's now or never.
Please support our joint crowdfunding campaign.
Many of us were pleased to see the President of Malta, Miriam Spiteri de Bono, addressing the inauguration of Fondazione Falcone last Sunday. Indeed, it was refreshing to hear the head of state talking about the need for public servants to assiduously follow the highest of standards. However, I believe those who were pleased by this will be less pleased to hear that the president shook hands with one of the defense lawyers in the hospital's case. Stefano Filletti, who is representing both Ronald Mizzi and Deborah Chapel, got a presidential promo on the House for his new book. Disgraced former permanent secretary Ronald Mizzi, Conrad Mizzi's right-hand man, still works with the civil service with a salary that matches what he was paid before. Deborah Chapel was named by the inquiring magistrate and court experts as a key legal facilitator in the fraudulent deal. Oh, and in case you were thinking that perhaps we're looking too much into the president's diary, well, guess who else she decided to support with her presence this week? Well, none other than the country's most beloved traffic jam-inducing event of the year, Sigma.
But back to CGW and the inauguration of Fondazione Falcone last Sunday. What exactly were the president's words which have been celebrated among rule of law activists?
Politics and the corridors of power particularly have to be clean of all traces of exercise of power, devoid of the basic tenet of the common good and responsibility therefore. If structures to safeguard this are lacking, legislators, the representatives of the people, particularly those democratically entrusted with representation by universal suffrage, are duty-bound to foster and incorporate regulations in the statute books to safeguard these standards of good governance. However, these standards have to be assiduously followed, perennially nurtured by continual practice and universally accepted as the foundation of all standards of behavior.
The movie Castillo, Malta's submission to this year's Academy Awards, is not being promoted following a bureaucratic fuck-up. The producers, Abigail Malia and Carlos de Batista, are still waiting for money they applied for. A substantial amount in cash rebates is owed to them by the Malta Film Commission. The producers even had to pay people out of their own pockets. For the time being, there's no money left to promote the movie among those Academy members who decide which international feature film gets an Oscar. Julian talked to Carlos de Batista, screenwriter and co-producer of Castillo.
We were awarded the grant to make the film from the Book Council, and we started the pre-production, and during the pre-production, one of the things we did was obviously contact the Film Commission requesting for the cash rebate, because that's the procedure. We started talking to someone, I'm not going to mention a name, but someone who works there. She requested information. We sent her all the information that she requested. And as this was happening, we're getting closer and closer to actually production date. After a while, the contact was not coming back. We sent an email, we didn't receive an answer, and finally we got an answer, and she asked us for a few more stuff, and then we sent yet another email, right? We started production, and obviously, as I explained many times, and we said many times, we're a very small team, producing a huge monster of a project. So we were all hands on deck, literally on all hands on deck. And I believe we sent one more reminder, and we didn't get an answer. By which time we're deep in the production, we were like all out. So production ends, post-production almost comes to an end, and obviously we're drafting the budget, and we sent a final reminder. So guys, you never spoke to us. Okay, how are we doing there? And we get a letter that we do not have the certification. The certificate was not approved, so we're not entitled to this. And I said, wait a minute, what does that mean? We sent them the email history, right? The correspondence history, where it's clear that we tried to contact and we sent everything to these people. By then, the person that we had started talking to originally had left the position, and there was someone else taking care of it who was very, very helpful where she could. Okay, obviously, because but the bottom line is we're not entitled. Obviously, we tried to not contact the film commissioner to set a meeting, so at least we can talk this out and explain, okay, yes, perhaps we did not chase for a period of time because we were producing, but you guys have all the information. We sent you 2 emails to remind you. We heard nothing from you, and that's the situation. Issa, the thing is this. We use that money from the rebate. It is part of the budget. All right? Usually we have people to pay from that, and we also wanted to use part of that money to market the film Castillo with the Academy once it was chosen to represent Malta for the next Academy Awards, right? Which happened. And obviously, the way it works, as I explained, just to explain briefly, the film goes to the US, right? It is chosen, first it's chosen by the Maltese board, then it is sent to the US and they start watching it. And the way they do it is this: the Academy is made up of a few thousand, I don't know how many exactly, but viewers, that actually sit down and watch the swarm of films that come their way. And you need to market your film with these viewers to get them to actually watch it. I'd imagine these guys have a stack of movies. They don't have time to watch them all. If it hits them, it hits them. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And usually what happens, you employ someone to help you market your film with these people so that they see it. They might not like it. They might say, this is not for us. At the moment, we do not have the budget necessary to do this. As simple as that.
And can I ask you a crucial question, because I think this is very important, just to quantify it in the minds of our viewers as well. When you say you've effectively been left out of pocket with this tax rebate, how much are we talking about? As in,
I do not want to put a price to it, and I'll tell you why. Because the way we work is this. We came to a point, when we requested the cash rebate, right? We were launching the film. So what? Next step would have been we launch the film, and then we finalize our accounts to know how much the cash rebate is. Because obviously to launch, it's part of it. But I can tell you it's substantial thousands. It's not a small.
Okay.
All right? It's not as.
Okay, and in relation to this saga, and also in general in your career as a producer, as a writer, and as a person who's very prevalent in the industry, what is your opinion, not just of how Film Commissioner Johan Grek has handled this situation and the industry in general, but also obviously your opinion about his superior, who ultimately would be Clayton Bartol at the tourism ministry? What is your assessment of the situation and
The
those two
situation is this.
individuals?
Look, yes, I cannot talk much about the tourism industry because I have not had any direct contact with them. Well, I did very briefly, but not on film-related matters. In fact, now I have a meeting with them about this, but I don't want to comment on that because it's not fair at this point. This is the first time we're actually meeting, so let's see what happens. But with regards to the film commission and the film commissioner, but let's talk about the film commission. I like to talk very clearly, and I don't like to leave things out. I think the film commissioner, with all his flaws and virtues, that works well when it comes to attracting films to Malta. All right, Issa, how much money he spends there, I don't know, and of course I do know. What is Issa? If that was happening and he's investing heavily and we're getting them films, okay, and we're getting money back, fantastic. What is to me preposterous is that we are investing vast sums of money in bringing American films to Malta and American stars and all that jazz, basically. But we're not investing enough in local film, in local stories. Ultimately, what a Maltese film is basically it's telling our stories, the story of our people and our country. With all the colorful and messes and crazy beauty that composes this island nation. So basically, that to me, and that this has been said many times. But what really irritates me and irks me in this situation is this. You have a film produced by a Maltese team in the USA. So I believe it's a good film. Obviously, it is my opinion, but I know that me and the team, me, Abigail, and our team gave it all we had, literally, really. And I think it's a great little film, basically. So you film Malta with billboards saying that you're offering jobs in the film industry to Maltese people, right? You're always touting that you're bringing jobs for Maltese people. We all know that Maltese people within the film industry, the vast majority work in jobs below the line, which basically means the kind of jobs that aren't the primary jobs within the film. They're not the actual, usually they give them to foreigners. And now you have a film showcasing Maltese talent, film industry talent in the USA, where these people can see it and say, hey, guys, these guys can fucking make a movie, And instead of helping us, you're hindering us. Don't help us, but don't hinder us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this goes beyond the vast money that was spent on that video and what they spent for the fair or all that thing. That's something else. But that already, I think, is very sad and counterintuitive to what they're saying they want to do at TFM. So, guys, it's not like we produce 10, 20 films a year here in Malta. At best, we produce 1 or 2, okay? And at best, we send 1 to the US every year. So that 1, at least, Jesus, man, support it. Because, if you want us to keep in, if you want to have an indigenous film industry, you have to support it for real. If you don't want to support it, then that's another ballgame.
As an independent fake journalist, I also appreciate the work of independent actual journalists like Julian and Michael. While the role of the traditional media is obviously very important in society, it's also important to have independent people in the field doing their own thing, mainly because they're not beholden to commercial or state interests. I also appreciate the work that Julian does on his commentary pieces. I find them very insightful. And finally, you should donate to Julian and Michael, because then I have more material for Bisarieta headlines.
It's now or never.
Please support our joint crowdfunding campaign.
Last but not least, one totally bizarre news item we just could not let go of. The Water Services Corporation decided to replace PN MP Ryan Kallus with a random man in a photo for social media. Shout out to Neville from The Times for writing up the funniest fact check we've read in a while. I caught up with Kallus over a Zoom call to ask him what he made of this mess.
Well, at first, I smiled because this has become a laughing matter. I mean, the response which I received since then has been, out of this world, because it was so obvious that such tactics remind us more of an authoritarian or a dictatorship or I don't know, definitely not a democratic country. Furthermore, when these are done by a public services corporation. Okay, so this is not Super One, this is not Super 2, TVM, which are. So now Water Service Corporation we can now start calling it Super 3, okay, because it took a photo, and by the way, the Chamber of Engineers who took this photo, okay, so this photo was not taken by the Water Service Corporation, it was taken by the Chamber of Engineers, and they had all the rights for that property of the photo. So the water services used that photo, manipulated it, okay, to somehow put someone else. Maybe I wasn't good looking enough for them, or maybe maybe I do not belong to the same political party or affiliation of the person who did this. But obviously, apart from the laughing aside, this shows.
What do you make of the official response as well?
This shows, first of all, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. They said they wanted students, but as soon as I read that reply, I hurriedly went into the Water Service Corporation Facebook page, and I took a shot of all the instances where they showed Minister Miriam Dalli, who is responsible for the Water Service Corporation. Now, I am the shadow minister for the Water Service Corporation, so I do not buy it that you come and tell me that for this very one instant, when it happened that I visited the Water Service Corporation stand, it somehow transpires that the Water Service Corporation wanted to portray students instead of politicians. I don't buy it. This is a fake reply, cannot be taken, actually it should be taken with a pinch of salt. And there is something else behind it. I know what it is, obviously. It's about trying to make out of the Water Service Corporation as if it is an extension of the political party or of the government of the day, which is totally unacceptable, because we must state that for this photoshopping exercise to have been done, it was done during office hours and by someone who is paid with taxpayers' money. This is totally unacceptable, apart from the fact that it was done to completely, annihilate a representative, which is, a person who is elected to parliament.
And that's it for tonight. Thank you very much for watching Newsweek, and see you again next week on Friday.